name is Father Lawrence Jagfeld. I am a Franciscan friar of the Sacred Heart Province, headquartered in St. Louis, Missouri, and I also serve as administrator of CUSA, an apostolate of persons with chronic illness and/or disability. We come now to the 31st Sunday in Ordinary Time, and this Sunday marks an end and a beginning. First of all, it brings to an end the journey that Jesus began back in chapter 9 when he decided that it was time for him to go to Jerusalem. And so this story takes place in Jericho, a city that lies at the base of the mountain on which Jerusalem sits. When Jesus comes to Jericho, it brings the journey to an end, but it begins the entire process of Jesus' salvation event, his death, his passion, and his resurrection. Before he enters Jerusalem, however, he pauses in Jericho to meet one last person. At that time, Jesus came to Jericho and intended to pass through the town. Now a man there named Zacchaeus, who was a chief tax collector and also a wealthy man, was seeking to see who Jesus was. But he could not see him because of the crowd, for he was short of stature. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree in order to see Jesus, who was about to pass that way. When he reached the place, Jesus looked up and said, "Zacchaeus, come down quickly, for today I must stay at your house." And he came down quickly and received him with joy. When they all saw this, they began to grumble, saying, "He has gone to stay at the house of a sinner." But Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, "Behold, half of my possessions, Lord, I shall give to the poor. And if I have extorted anything from anyone, I shall repay it 4 times over." And Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because this man is a descendant of Abraham. For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save what is lost." This particular story holds an emotional touchstone for me. Before I was ordained a priest, I spent 4 years teaching 1st and 2nd grade religion. Every Saturday, I would make my way to one of the local parish churches where I would join other adults who were engaged in teaching young people the faith. I was assigned to the 1st grade and the 2nd grade. And those who know me know that I am a big person. At that time, I stood at least 6 feet tall when I had my shoes on, and I was a heavy person as well. These children were very small. And this story appealed to them because the book that we were using made a great deal of the fact that Zacchaeus himself was a small man, and yet Jesus singled him out to visit his house. We actually sang a song about Zacchaeus that said, "There was a man in Jericho named Zacchaeus. The Hebrews, they were tall, but Zacchaeus, he was small. But the Lord loved Zacchaeus better than them all." The children used to love to sing this song with gusto. However, there's far more important things to talk about in the song, in the story, than just simply the fact that Zacchaeus was a man of short stature. For Zacchaeus was a man who was judged by his fellow villagers. The people of Jericho looked upon him as a sinner. Now, there is a technical problem with the gospel. The Greek places the verbs in this story in the present tense, but when it has been translated into English, it places the verbs in the future tense. And scripture scholars have been debating about this since before I began to study the scriptures. Should we, in fact, use the present tense, wherein Zacchaeus simply states what he already does, that he already attempts not to defraud people, that he already is generous when he has discovered a mistake? Or shall we use the future tense as the English does, which seems to signal that the visit that Jesus has here with Zacchaeus brings about his conversion. If I defraud somebody, I shall repay them. I shall pay tithes, and all sorts of other things that would signal that he is, in fact, a man who has converted because of his experience of Jesus. Actually, either interpretation works, and it all depends upon how you want to look at the story. But I think it's important that we remember that the physical wealth here, that the gospel makes a point of saying Zacchaeus was a very wealthy man, does not really say much about his status in the community, because this community, like all Middle Eastern communities, was not driven by economic wealth. It was driven by honor and the avoidance of shame. And here we have a man who was wealthy in material goods, but devoid of honor, because he was shamed by his fellow villagers. Jesus, when approaching him, says, "Zacchaeus, come down. I mean to visit in your house." Jesus bestows upon him the honor that is missing among his community. And this is a point that St. Luke is trying to make throughout the gospel, because all of the stories that deal with the people who are seeking honor seem to say that it is only God who bestows honor, rather than human beings. And in this way, this is a particularly apt story to introduce Jesus' passion, his death, and his eventual resurrection. Because the death Jesus will die when he reaches Jerusalem is a very, very ignominious, shameful death. But God bestows honor on Jesus through the resurrection, just the way Jesus bestows honor on Zacchaeus in his greeting and in his visit. So whether or not Zacchaeus is rashly judged, or whether he is someone who converts, the meaning of the story is the same. True honor comes from God. And those of us in our day who are seeking to be people of prestige, people of esteem, people of honor, need to remember that true honor comes from God. And so that the really important issue here is not how much we make in terms of material goods, but rather what our relationship is with the God who bestows honor on each of us. For more information about CUSA, I'd invite you to visit our website at www.cuson.org or look us up on Facebook.